Everybody, welcome to Homeless Services Task Force meeting for May. So the meeting notes, hopefully everybody was able to read the notes from the 2nd March meeting. If there's no objection, we'll receive and file those. Okay, I don't see any hands and I don't hear any objections. So we'll receive and file the minutes from the last meeting. So we'll start with the SPA 8 services providers and we'll have the updates. So we'll start with Courtney Reed.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Anna's going to be giving our presentation today. So we are waiting to get that started. We're going to give an update on what we've done since the last meeting, which was in March. And okay, there we go.
Hi everyone, I am Anna. I am the program manager for PATS outreach team here in the SPA 8 area. And Courtney Reed, as well as Haley, is our associate director.
And yes, we actually have a new director, Kimberly D'Amico. She's not able to make this meeting, but you'll meet her at the July meeting. She's our new director over SPAs 5 and 8. Haley is still around. She's the regional director, and I'm the associate director for SPA 8. So you'll meet Kim D'Amico, who is a South Bay resident. So you'll meet her in July.
All right, so this is our team. We still have Jillian, Jenny, and Stephanie, and what we provide is intensive street case management, screenings, NCES, housing location services, ongoing supportive services, interim housing referrals, and housing voucher assistance. Next slide. This is kind of like our schedule. Our schedule is tailored to our appointments and it's adjusted to best serve our participants. We usually divide between the cities or throughout the day or throughout the week to better serve and to better hit different cities. On Mondays, we're usually in Gardena, Wilmington, and Redondo Beach. On Tuesdays, we're in Harbor City and Lomita. Wednesdays, we are in Carson. We'll alternate between Hawthorne and Lawndale and also Redondo Beach. Thursdays, we are in Torrance and Lenox. We alternate between El Segundo and West Athens, and we attend Redondo Beach as well. Fridays is usually documentation and office time, but we are also sometimes willing to go out onto the field, or if we have time or appointments, we also attend any other cities that we didn't catch throughout the week. So here we have the LA Hops. This is what we use to accept or coordinate or search for individuals that the community members have inputted. Next slide. For the month of March and April, we've had 20 requests, making a total of 113 since July of 2020. Below, it's a breakdown of the cities. We've had an increase, a really good increase. Carson had 15 requests for the past 2 months. Gardena had 1, Lawndale had 1, Torrance had 2, and Lomita had 1. Next slide. Some of the community connections that we've established or obtained are some of the joint outreaches that we do with other services such as MHALA, LASA, Harbor Interfaith, and sometimes DHS as well. We are continuing our outreach at Lomita, McCoy, and Catman and surrounding areas. There was a cleanup recently, so some of the tents have dispersed around the areas. We also started going into Gardena and Catman next to Rosecrans Parks. We've continued our outreaches at Tiny Home Village and also at the Lenox encampment, which has renewed its joint outreaches as of March. In Redondo Beach, we have continued our meal giving attendance. We attend St. Andrews, St. James, and Share Bread at First United Methodist. We've continued a communication with the Gardena Police Department, Redondo Beach, El Segundo, and Hawthorne Police Department as well. We also maintain communications with local shelters such as Doors of Hope, Beacon Light, and Athens Park Shelter. And every last Wednesday of each month, we attend Homeless Court. Next slide.
Anna. Hey, Anna, before we go on to the next slide, a question. I'm actually not familiar with the Athens Park Shelter. Where is Athens Park again?
Athens Park is within West Athens. It
Okay.
just closed. It was part of the winter shelters that has been open since 2020. And it just closed this past April 30th.
Oh, okay, so it's closed. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was a border shelter between Spot 6 and Spot 8.
Got it. But then the Long Beach shelter for winter is still open. And then Alondra Park is still on standby, right?
Yes, the Long Beach one, it is currently open until June 30th, but it doesn't have any available beds as of right now.
Okay. And then going back to this, is there any color on why Carson jumped so much?
Honestly, I'm not too sure, but we are glad it has. It has exposed a lot of individuals, and we have communicated and referred a lot of individuals from there.
Mhm.
But it's mostly from community members or residents.
Okay. I know they're restarting their homeless task force in City of Carson. I was just curious to see maybe it had something to do with that, but I guess it's just a coincidence. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here we have our continued communications with the community. Like I mentioned before, we have continued joint outreaches with LASA, Harbor Interfaith, MHALA, and DHS. The Venice Family Clinic has also joined us, our outreach team. They have joined us since March, and they join us every Thursday. In the picture below or on the side, it's Dr. Mimi Tran. She's the doctor that attends the individuals that we see or we encounter. And every Thursday she is at the Lennox encampment. And then tomorrow she'll also be going to the St. Andrew's Meal Giving with her van. And they will be providing medical services as well there. At Torrance, we have established a joint outreach between Harbor Interfaith and PAC. This is either every Thursday or every Wednesday. And then in Gardena, the Dave Matthews from the Chamber of Commerce was the one who reached out to us to join in the Gardena encampment in efforts to get those individuals into shelters or housed or connected to some type of service. Next slide. Out here on this slide, this is our outcomes since September for SD2 and October for SD4. At the moment, we have for mental health 2 at SD4 and 3 for SD2. Primary care, we have connected 6 individuals in SD4 and 21 individuals in SD2. For substance dependency, we have connected 7 individuals in SD4 and 11 in SD2. We have health increased income for 5 individuals in SD4 and 3 in SD2. We have connected 5 individuals in SD4 to permanent housing and 8 individuals in SD2. Our total caseload in SD4 is 23, and out of those 23 individuals, 9 are seniors. In SD2, our total caseload is 35, and our seniors are 16 of those 35 members. And again, wants to know the replanning of the spas has changed the cities, and that's why the numbers kind of look bigger on one side than the other as before the previous presentations have. Next slide.
And I was just thinking on this slide, it might be good to know, like, also, like, because I've been hearing from outreach workers that they have people ready for shelters, but now that the shelters are opened up and fully staffed or fully occupied, there just isn't enough beds now again for folks. So it might be good to know, like, how many of people on the caseload are like shelter ready, and then if there's any like particular cities where they're at that they're ready, it might be good to call it out too, so that we can know like where we need more beds, you know.
Okay.
Interesting.
Go ahead and note that next time.
Yeah.
In the next slide, I did make a note of the referrals we have made.
Okay.
Year to date, we have made 20 interim referrals. That includes any shelters that we have or were available at the moment or as of now. Another highlight we would like to point out is that we have increased our rapid referrals or rapid spots available to us. We have referred 21 individuals, and everyone who has been referred has obtained a spot with rapid rehousing. We've also had some individuals go into tiny home and pallet shelters, and this past March, we had one individual who finally got into pallet shelter in Redondo Beach after much advocacy since sometime last year that we began. We have had 25 new participants enrolled since the year to date. We also continue making sure that everyone has a housing voucher interest form on HMIS. We've had, out of those 69 individuals that we've submitted housing voucher interest forms, only 30 have been matched, and unfortunately, only 4 have been issued so far. Next slide. Some of the challenges that we have encountered is staffing. We're still understaffed, unfortunately. We have interviewed and we have sent out offers. Unfortunately, they haven't succeeded or proceeded with going along with path. We have continued facing challenges with COVID restrictions. Shelters at their max capacity, now they're unfortunately closing, and we'll have to do with the ones that are in different cities. There's lack of interim housing as well, low affordable housing availability. And the one we all know and have heard is the waiting time period for vouchers, matches, and then issuance it's unpredictable, and at this point it's sometimes pretty long. Next slide.
What's causing the, is it just losses backed up that's causing the matches to voucher issuance?
It's the loss, it's the housing authority too.
Housing authority.
So it's, yeah, because we were on with LASA earlier, trying to navigate, and it's like we reach out for follow-ups, and it's just about, they were just telling us that the housing authority is backed up as well. So
Yeah, it's not 100% a horrible thing. The only reason I say that is because there's lack of housing inventory once you get the voucher. So
Yeah.
flooding the market with hundreds of vouchers isn't ideal either. So this trickle effect might be good, as as long as we have housing available, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. At least that's the feedback I got from some of the housing authorities. Like, there's just, there's also a lack of housing inventory. So once you get the voucher, it's tough going from there too. So, yeah, it's a lot of challenges.
Yeah, but the other good thing about the voucher is that they will take it in shared housing as well. So shared living situations, you can apply it to, SROs, you can apply it to. And so it's just about, managing the participants' expectations so they, won't end up losing the voucher. Let's use it here, and maybe in a year you can talk about porting out, to a bigger unit or a different city, but.
Yeah.
Ronson, if I may say something, my apologies. This is Dulce from the Hawthorne Homeless Coordination Program. I definitely have to agree with what the ladies are saying. I received an email today from HACLA saying that they're 4 months behind in the voucher issuance process because I've sent inquiries on a couple of our clients that have been matched. And I actually received an email from HACLA today stating that they are approximately 3 to 4 months behind.
Yeah, but are you like on the inventory side, right? Like housing inventory side, do you have like several landlords like have open places, or are you struggling there too in terms of finding landlords to accept these vouchers?
I think it's a little bit of both. We've also encountered some landlords saying that they've reached the limit that they can accept of housing vouchers as well.
Okay.
All right. Our success story, Anna mentioned earlier, Jamel, who's been homeless in Torrance and Redondo Beach area for years, is very familiar to the city staff from both of those cities. We finally got him a placement in the tiny home village, and he actually got a voucher, and so he's connected to Rapid Rehousing. So he's on his way to, obtaining permanent housing with the voucher. And that's very exciting because I've known him personally, from being at the meal programs in Redondo Beach for 4 years. And so it's good to finally see him get connected to some housing. And he's inside right now, stable, so we know where we can find him to be able to make those appointments to go out and do unit searches. So we're excited that he was finally matched to a voucher and the pallet shelters in Redondo.
Awesome.
Next slide.
This is Denise. We first had initial contact with Ms. Denise when past outreach team was in the Lawndale Project Room Key during COVID of 2020. She was then transferred over to the Mayfair Project Room Key once the Lawndale one closed. Once she transferred, she was then referred to the Recovery Path team, and they continue working with outreach or collaborating with outreach to get Ms. Denise housed. And she was finally able to do that or obtain housing through the assistance of a housing voucher. So this is Miss Denise on the picture. I'm very excited to finally have her own place that she can call home for at least the future years. Next slide. Teamwork makes the dream work. Out here we have some pictures of the team. On the left side, we have the team with Mental Health America. And then on the right side, we have Courtney actually joining us, outreaching at the Lennox encampment. Next slide. Some of the future considerations that we would like to put out there is reconsideration or reviewing of empty lots for housing options such as tiny homes, pallet shelters, or even affordable housing if it could be. Some motel conversions. We did hear that some motel owners were interested in converting or offering their motels for interim housing. Unfortunately, they were out of the Spot 8 area. And so we had to delegate that into another direction. And we would also like to encourage property owners or the city to encourage property owners to work with housing vouchers. I know Lori created, or Bronson Lori created a flyer to share with property owners, which is pretty amazing. So if we can just share that, spread the word, they do receive a landlord incentive through the housing authority. So we can pretty much share the word with every landlord, every property owner that we know. That would be great. Next slide. Once again, this is our contact information. You can contact Courtney at courtneyr@epath.org, and you can contact me at annaau@epath.org. Next slide. Thank you all.
Okay, I see we have a raised hand from Ashley.
Hi, thanks. Thanks, Courtney. Quick question for you. We support that cities leverage their existing relationships, working with their multi-unit property owners. Having said that, what kind of local preference are you guys applying should the cities identify these scattered sites in their jurisdiction?
So say the first part again.
The local preference or before that?
Before the local preference.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you guys are trying to work with our city partners to engage, property owners so that we could actually utilize the emergency housing vouchers. And there are some cities who are actually working directly with their multi-unit property owners since there is a registry for it, and they leverage their existing relationships. So I was wondering, when cities identify these scatter sites in their jurisdictions, do you guys use any local preference, or how does the matching take place? So I guess my question is, so let's say one city identified a scatter site housing in their jurisdiction, would that unit be available for their client through the match process?
It all depends. If LACTA has a certain jurisdiction, there's some locations, like for example, in Hawthorne, there's some locations in Hawthorne that do qualify for the LACTA voucher, and then others don't. So we just have to see, or I guess find out what zip code that unit is in and see if it fits in within the HACLA or the LACTA voucher jurisdiction, or within that city's housing authority.
Hey, Ashley, in talking to our local housing authorities, it sounds like they have a better pulse in terms of who their landlords are, and they're trying to fill their vouchers in those places. So and they're the ones that kind of brought up that notion to me, is like it's kind of good that these vouchers are trickling out, because they just don't have that many landlords right now, and the housing market is just super tight. So that was the feedback I got from the housing authorities.
Okay, yeah, for the cities that have local PHAs, you're right, then they're administering their own. But then for those that's being administered by LACTA, I just want to make sure that I have a better understanding of local preference, because I know that's a very sensitive spot for the cities. But appreciate, Pat working on this. Thank you.
Yeah. Dulce? Dulce, do you have your hand up?
Yes, sorry, I apologize. My mute wasn't working too well. I wanted to ask the ladies if they are encountering a barrier in getting folks into shelter that have no ID and are not taking even a birth certificate. I've had a couple of shelter encounters where we refer clients to shelters, and because they don't have a proper identification, they won't take them in. And, that's just another barrier that we're facing. We could, by the time we submit a DMV voucher, it's about a two to 3 week process for them to get their ID, but they're not taking them even with a copy of a birth certificate. So I wanted to know what if they're experiencing the same thing.
I don't think we've ever encountered that. Usually what they do is they ask us for a homeless observation from us, or some form of verification that they are who they are. But for the most part, they don't deny individual for not having an ID or a birth certificate.
Okay, then, yeah, well, I had one person be denied today, so,
Do you know from what? Do you know from what shelter it was?
Yeah, the Union Rescue Mission.
Oh, okay.
And this is not the first time, but I just wanted to follow up and see how, we could best coordinate and see how we could best help our clients. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would maybe recommend or suggest calling, one of the supervisors and explaining and just advocating for that person and letting them know where you are in the process of securing the identification as well.
Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions? If not, just one comment. Just on the staffing shortage, just some thoughts on that. I'm thinking about maybe so I've contacted SBWIB, the South Bay Workforce Investment Board, to see if there's any interest in maybe doing like a job fair of some sort, and maybe also bringing in SoCal Rock. Because I think this is going to be a very long issue. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. So we probably as a COG should start planning on getting more people licensed in social work, and also try and recruit people into this field. So those are just some thoughts, and we can talk about more offline, Courtney and Sherry, about that.
For sure. And I know, people are going to be graduating soon from college right now, maybe in the next few weeks. And so hopefully we'll see an uptick with recent graduates. And I have classmates that I've been trying to recruit. So hopefully, we can, see an increase in resumes and things. Because we've sent out a lot of offers that just have not come to fruition. It's been very disappointing.
I do
Any other
see
questions?
Questions from Garrett. Hey, Garrett.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually about to graduate with my master's in social work right now from Cal State Long Beach. And part of my research that I've been working on is the staff turnover. So I just wanted to kind of comment on that a little bit. So the research that I've found for homeless services in Los Angeles that was coming from the Homeless Policy Research Institute showed that within homeless services in general, there's between 20 and 60% staff turnover every year. And that the two main reasons why this research found why that was happening was the number one reason was compensation. That staff who are working in homeless services are frequently very close to homelessness themselves. They've either personally experienced homelessness or know someone who has, and the compensation for doing this job is barely enough to keep people out of homelessness themselves, I'm not sure if anyone saw the recent resignation letter from the CEO of LASA, but she had to fight incredibly hard to raise the lowest salary from $33,000 a year to $50,000 a year. And so a lot of our outreach workers are being paid not exactly what matches up to the work responsibilities and their duties. And then the other reason that the research showed was that there's a lot of secondary trauma in working in homeless services and dealing with these systems, and in working with people who are experiencing the worst day of their life when we're meeting with them. And taking on that trauma and having it not be supported by the agency itself really burns out staff. And staff are made to feel like this is their fault and their problem. And so I think from an administration perspective, we really need to start supporting our staff in recognizing that they are taking on a lot. So I think that those two things, increasing the value of what we give to our staff for the value that they're providing our communities, and also recognizing that this is hard work. So in addition to just overall recruiting efforts, but yeah, those are just my comments.
Thanks, Garrett. That's very valuable. Yeah, I'd love to see your study. If you can send that, I know you're talking to Lori. If you can send that to her, I'd love to read it. Appreciate that. And we can maybe even send it out to the task force as well.
And I would just like to add to that yes, absolutely everything you said, Garrett, is true. And PATH did take a look at that last year and adjusted everybody's salaries. We still lost staff to go over to LASA because they pay more. And so, and as far as, the vicarious comment, a big part, we understand and acknowledge this work is hard, it's stressful, and it's draining. And I've been doing it for years. And, we preach self-care as not just an act, but like a routine of self-care. And you have to take care of yourself. And, the EAP hotline, we have our meetings and we provide support to staff because we do acknowledge that this is frustrating, hard. We're working within a system that's flawed. And so like we acknowledge, all of that. And I think, I agree with everything you're saying 100%. So, we did take a look at that as PATH and made the necessary adjustments. And when we do hire people, we're offering, a salary based on degrees, bilingualness, if that's needed in areas, and years of relevant experience. And so we take all of that into consideration.
Okay, thanks. That was pretty informative. Thanks for all the, Garrett, thanks for your input. Let's move on to Sherry Weaver, spot 8. Sherry?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. So I'll start out my report with interim housing. So our San Pedro interim housing, our county site, we currently have 3 vacancies. And the reason that it takes a little bit longer to fill those particular beds is because those referrals have to go directly through Department of Health Services before we actually get a referral. And oddly enough, in the past 2 weeks, we've had 6 referrals where either the individual wasn't locatable or they had made a decision not to enter a congregate site. So we do have currently 3 openings. We've had 25 housing placements out of this site alone. San Pedro ABH, we have 0 vacancies. We are currently still at the 75 bed capacity, the decompressed capacity. Just got word, I've been talking with Department of Health Services and LASA this week too, and then CD15 about recompressing back to our 100 bed capacity. So we are in the process of getting a COVID assessment to make sure that we're doing it safely. And then once that assessment is completed, then we will do a gradual increase to 80%, 90%, and then back to 100% with 2-week increments in between each one of those increased beds. And then Redondo Beach Pallet Shelter, we have no vacancies. And we've had 25 permanent housing placements there. And then just going back to Redondo Beach, we always have a waiting list there. We've always got folks from Redondo Beach that are on a waiting list, which is one of the reasons why it's difficult to get folks in. And that's, I'll leave it at that. And then for our coordinated entry system, for each of our specific populations, our goals for this year, for individual adults, we've had 209 people newly assessed. We've had 45 people placed in permanent housing through rapid rehousing and recovery rehousing, another 50 chronically homeless individuals placed in permanent housing through housing navigation. For Torrance Housing Navigation, we've had another 13 people permanently placed. And then with our contract through Redondo Beach, we've had another 6 individuals permanently placed. Our transitional age youth population, we've had a total of 36 individuals, new individuals that have been assessed this year. We've had 12 that have been permanently placed through rapid rehousing. And then we've had another 3 that have actually increased their income during this year. And then last but not least, our family system. We've had a total of 179 families, new families coming into the system. We've had 77 that have obtained permanent housing through rapid rehousing. And then we've had another 17 that have maintained or entered into a new unit through our prevention services. So we really, look at how we can have people maintain their housing and not fall into homelessness through prevention. And then we've had another 13 households that have increased their income so far this year. So this month's success story is going to be a little bit different. It's not actually about an individual. It's more about an effort that has been going on down here in CD15. The last 3 weeks, there have been postings in the beginning of enforcement of LA Municipal Code 4118, which is the anti-camping enforcement ordinance. So we've been working at San Pedro Gulch Road, which is like our last encampment down here in San Pedro since opening up all our interim housing sites. This is the last of nearly 200 plus tents and encampments that were in and around the San Pedro post office. We had a total of about anywhere from 14 to 20 tents that were in this one little section. We've been working with the Councilman Buscaino for the last 2 weeks. We went out 2 weeks ago and we started handing out flyers and having individual conversations with each person that was in that encampment. 2 things happened during that day. The councilman really promoted the shelters that he has stood up in the area to address homelessness. And I went with him to really, get people connected. At that first visit 2 weeks ago, when we handed out the flyers before enforcement started, we were able to get 7 people into the ABH site and 1 dog named Zeus. Zeus went very willingly. But it was really kind of an amazing effort. I know when I walked away from the initial postings and the handing out a flyer, there was just something that told me if we're offering shelter, then we have to make that happen today. So I brought the team back out and just watching that effort of, looking at those residents that are currently at the Bridge housing site that may not have been maintaining their bed nights. So if they've been MIA for 3 days or longer, I have people out there that are wanting to get in. So I made that accommodation and exited the folks that had been missing and put in the people that said yes to shelter that day. In addition to that, yesterday was the first day of actual enforcement at this site. So again, the councilman, LAPD, Department of Sanitation, a very emotional time because the reality of enforcement was coming about. So I made sure myself and my team was out there again. And we were able to get 3 more people moved into ABH site in San Pedro. And then there was another 2 individuals that we found an opening at the tiny homes over in Wilmington. So we provided transportation and made that happen. All said and done, at the end of this effort, I think we might have had 4 people, not necessarily rejecting housing, but very specific about what type of environment that they would be able to be in. So we are continuing our work with that. But it's just an amazing transformation, what we've seen here at the San Pedro Post Office and surrounding areas from back in 2020 when we've opened these 2 sites to what it is today. So I just wanted to kind of lift that up today.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, thanks, Sherry. Rodson, you're going to give some SPY outreach teams coverage?
Yeah. Oh, Janet had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wasn't fast enough.
It's okay. We'll get to you. Go ahead.
So Sherry, how long did you actually have to work on the the homeless at the San Pedro post office, how much like time did the whole process take?
We opened our first site in March of 2020, which was the county shelter with 40 beds. We opened up the Bridge Home site in June of 2020, and we pretty much had already a priority list in hand when we opened both of those sites, and both of those sites pretty much filled up pretty quickly. We've had a lot of, success with getting folks into permanent housing. A lot of the same things that Anna and Courtney lifted up about, inventory and finding units and all those things are some of those challenges. But I think really addressing the souls that are out there. And the
I was
harm
trying
and
to, I was trying to understand. This sounds like it was an encampment to home.
it was an encampment to interim housing, then to permanent housing.
Right. And so I'm just trying to get a sense of how long those particular encampment to home programs will take.
It's a very interesting timeline, Janet, because those encampments had been out there way prior to us even considering opening these sites. We could probably say maybe as much as 4 to 5 years prior to any sites opening up. Thank God for the councilman's vision. Thank God for Supervisor Hahn's vision to say that we need to do something. As far as getting people into permanent housing, from 2020 to the time that we've gotten folks housed, the ones that we have so far, some of them has been as little as a couple of weeks, sometimes longer than that, depending on their condition and what was going on, may take a year. And again, just really overcoming, even if we have a Section 8 voucher, finding an owner that is willing to accept not only that resident, but also that subsidy.
So, and did I understand you to say that there are only 4 unhoused people left at the post office encampment?
At that particular encampment, yes.
That is fabulous. Great work. Thank you so much for explaining.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Sherry.
Yeah, so I just wanted to really quickly share something. Since we are a task force, when I say task force, I conjure up images of like a war room with whiteboard and maps. And so I thought we have a map at least, and so we can have a visual. I'm a visual type of person, and I know a lot of you guys are too as well. I just wanted, I created this map with the help of Sherry and Max. Thank you so much for doing that, looking this over. But these are funded positions that we have throughout the South Bay. And just want to go, I will be sharing this. Lori will send this out. But these are kind of like dedicated positions in these areas like Inglewood. We have an innovation funded position for an outreach worker. There's 2 navigators at St. Margaret Center. We have some positions here in the beach cities. And so you can just look at it and see what coverage we have in your particular area. Not on this map are these folks like PATH. They have 6 funded positions, although I believe only 3 are filled, to provide coverage all regions. So like Carson, there's not a box here. They're being serviced by PATH, as well as some of these all region teams, the multidisciplinary teams from Mental Health America, DMH Home. Share is no longer there. I need to take that off, but these are some other all region coverage. And then we're also trying to take an inventory on our housing navigation folks in the area. We have a total of 9. And so we just want to make sure we have a good handle of our coverage. And I'm hoping this map will do that. And then I also noted some hotspots in our area. Sherry mentioned the Gulch is right here. That's stuff that we've been working on. This is Lameda McCoy. There is a spot in near Rosecrans Park that is currently has our attention, and also here in our harbor area, and Lenox has a hotspot. So yeah, just wanted to share that with you all, and we'll be emailing this out.
Thanks, Rodson.
Yeah.
So when you guys get this, as it gets sent out, just take a look at it, because that was a great job putting that map together. Thank you. Okay, so without further ado, I think we're gonna bring in our presentation by Family Promise of South Bay, and that would be Andrew Nishimoto. Mr. Nishimoto.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to come here. I know several of you through partnerships that we've been working on for the past several years in various capacities. So I just want to share a little bit about what Family Promise is. We're a smaller agency and we kind of work in the seams of what all of you are doing great work in. But sometimes I know that, with the macro that everyone's working on, having someone like us can be beneficial for particular cases that maybe we can step in and support in. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. So Family Promise of the South Bay is an organization that works with families that are experiencing housing insecurity. And we do have services ranging from prevention all the way through stabilization. But one of the uniquenesses that we bring to this space is we are very intentional working with several faith communities throughout all of the South Bay. So our foundational model, the model that began Family Promise in 2015, was that we partnered with, starting with 13 all the way up to 27 faith communities to house shelter for families at a time each week in facilities provided by those faith communities. So they would move from one facility to the next each week. And that was a way that we were able to keep overhead down, but still provide safe spaces for families when they needed it. Of course, COVID kind of upended everything, as it has for all of us here on this call. And so we had to get creative in how we provided shelter for families. And so we did switch that model from one that rotated to one that stayed in one spot. And so we just recently in February opened up a respite center in San Pedro. Partnering with San Pedro United Methodist Church, we have a space for 4 families to stay, and then we provide case management for them on site. There are showers, laundry, kitchen, and a little bit of storage space for them. We also have transitional housing in Wilmington as well as in Long Beach, and we are opening up another home in Hawthorne in the next couple of months. One of the unique things that we do as Family Promise is we try to keep the number of families that we're serving at a pretty small and manageable number. And the reason why we do that is because we want to take essentially the family from wherever they're at all the way to being in a stable permanent home. And then we follow them for the next couple of years to make sure that they're staying in those homes. So there have been several families that we have placed in the permanent housing over the last couple of years that did reach out to us during the pandemic times and said, hey, whether we were let go or weren't able to work, so we need a little support now. And we were able to go back to them because of our partnerships with the various churches and foundations and community groups. We had the funds to support them so that they were able to stay in their homes. So one of the stats that we do hold very tightly to is 100% of the families that we've placed in the permanent housing have stayed in permanent housing from the point that we've placed them starting in 2015, which is when we first started operations, through today. And so for all of you that serve families in various ways, I think one of the great connections that we can have are, if you have some unique cases that maybe are going to take longer than some of your shelters allow for, or they need a little bit of extra support, we're an opportunity or a resource for you to connect with these families and be able to support them maybe a different way than what you traditionally have done. Specifically, we've also been able to grow in a couple of areas. We've built partnerships with the city of Carson, the city of Hawthorne, to really work very intensely with those families that are experiencing housing insecurity within their spaces. And so if you are working with the city and they're looking for a family service provider that can be a little bit of outside the box in the way that we provide services, we're an opportunity for that. And finally, one of the other new opportunities that we have too is we just opened our first social enterprise in the city of Long Beach, but it does serve all of the South Bay as well. It's a coffee shop called Wrigley Coffee, Wrigley like the gum. And so it's an opportunity for us to provide some workforce development for people that are in our shelter, so that once we find them permanent housing, they're also able to find permanent employment. So we just opened that in February, and we are already in conversations with several different providers and expanding that model because the way that we're trying to design it is so it's not too much of a financial drag on the organization, but also able to provide a lot of opportunities for families to exist within a trauma-informed work environment. I'm sure many of you, as you've worked with families or individuals, and maybe you have some partners in the for-profit industry that you were able to place them for employment, but it possibly didn't work out because the manager or the owner wasn't well equipped to be trauma-informed in their training and development. So we've tried to kind of flip the script on that. And while we can't go and train every manager or owner of a small business, we can work with our families and individuals to train them to engage with their trauma in a way that when they do step into a quote unquote typical workplace, they're able to manage that well. And we're hoping to, in the next year or so, roll out a training program so that we can connect with small business owners and bring them up to speed on trauma-informed care, so that when they do, not only for their current workplace, but as they engage with other providers like you for employment, they're well equipped to bring those families and individuals alongside with them. So that's our newest endeavor that we started a few months ago as well. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to share that. And again, thank you to all of you that are on the call doing such amazing work. Sherry, that's an incredible story of what you guys were able to do in San Pedro. I know that was a lot of hard work in so many senses of the word hard. And so I'm so glad that you guys saw that through, and everyone else on the call, the great work you're doing. And if you do have any particular questions for me, I would love to answer those.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, how about raised hands?
Yeah, I just want to say really quickly, thanks Andrew for coming out. I invited Andrew on because we do get funding, and we saw funding recently from the state for family solutions for homelessness. And we like to say in homeless services, there's no wrong door, but the reality is that if you're a family, you pick up the phone and call PATH in the South Bay, they can't really help you because they don't have the family contract. It's not any fault of PATH, but that's just the reality of the situation. So we have to then direct you to LA Hop or direct you to Sherry, because they do families at Harbor Interfaith. And so so for these subpopulations like families or domestic violence victims, youth and TAY, there are separate resources that come along from time to time. And Family Promise is a great partner for cities if cities want to jump on those funding opportunities to help their families going through homelessness. So I just want to add that. And they've worked with a few cities already in the South Bay, and some
Join the meeting.
Are looking to kind of partner with them as well.
Yeah, thanks. It sounds like a great program, especially for churches and stuff right now that are looking to help. Other questions? It's a good opportunity. Okay, well, if you think of something later, we'll make sure that you get in touch with Andrew, and you guys can send us and exchange ideas. So thank you very much. We appreciate you coming in, Andrew.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, so let's move on to the Care Court SB 1416 update. So that would be Mr. Stansberry.
Yes, thank you, Ronson. Sorry, I had a little technical problem, and so I had to move to another area. So I'm using a green screen in the background. So pardon my video with that. I'm Paul Stansberry. I'm the president of NAMI South Bay. That's the National Alliance of Mental Illness. We're the South Bay chapter. We're part of NAMI Greater Los Angeles County, NAMI California, NAMI National. We're mainly in NAMI South Bay, an all-volunteer organization, nonprofit, which family members and persons with a mental illness. And our mission is to support, educate, and advocate for persons with mental illness and their families. I'm proud with that. And so NAMI is probably the largest grassroots organization dealing with mental illness in the nation with that. And we get involved a lot with our families. I'm also involved with the NAMI Greater Los Angeles board, in which we deal with a lot of issues with that. And then also I'm on the co-chair of the Service Area 8 Departmental Health Advisory Committee, which is, the Service Area 8. And then also I've been working with the South Bay Coalition in Homelessness for several years now. And then finally, I'm also on the boards for Home to Life Foundation, which is a housing provider in the Harbor Gateway area, but also in other parts of LA County, because of that. And what I was going to talk to you today a little bit, and I should mention, NAMI GLAC is also involved with the we're trying to help start an association of boarding cares, licensed boarding cares, to help address the the boarding cares decreasing in LA County. So we're working on an association to deal with those issues which relate to the CARES court process with that. So the CARES court is as you probably know, is the Community Assistance, Recovery, and Empowerment Court. It's a proposal by the governor for about $2 billion and other funding issues come involved, in which is a framework to deliver mental health and substance abuse disorder services to the most severely impaired Californians who often languish in homelessness or incarceration without the treatment that they need. And there are many elements to that process with that there, and it involves the idea that the care plan, they would develop a care plan, which would be for up to 12 months with the possibility of extending that. And it's really more like an upstream diversion in which you involve this whole series with that. And so it's trying to deal with the homeless issue. It also could be with others who may not be homeless too, though. So it engaged with a petition to the court for the wide range of individuals. It can be by care providers, by family members, by first responders, or counties, among others. So it supports a self-determined path to recovery and self-sufficiency. So just a little background. I've lived in the South Bay for 50 years now. It's a long time. In the last 20 years, I've been dealing with the National Alliance of Mental Illness, who was a big help to us, and dealing with my son, he's been in the South Bay, has a dual diagnosis of mental illness and substance abuse. He has been homeless in the South Bay. He has been at times resistant to treatment. So I've been involved with some of the homeless issues. I've contacted the homeless outreach teams at times, and also we did a lot of different issues with that. So this issue is very close to NAMI families. I get calls frequently. And then we do believe that all people should have the right to make their own decisions about medical treatment. However, we're aware that there are individuals with serious mental illnesses such as schizophrenia and other psychotic disorders who at times, due to their illness, lack the insight or good judgment about their need for medical treatment. In cases like this, a higher level of care may be necessary, but must be the last resort. NAMI California, NAMI Greater Los Angeles County, and NAMI South Bay, we've supported the CARES court. We attended the Judiciary Committee hearing last week of the letters of support, and I testified to support the bill and process with this. There are some issues with it, as you may know. There are some opposition. There's a large number of organizations who oppose it, mainly because of the civil rights issue. And we understand the civil rights, and we want to respect civil rights, but we are concerned that there's sometimes we believe that there's, with the lack of insight, especially when they're in a psychotic episode, that they're not able to make good judgment. And so there's a way to deal with this. And so we're thinking that this CARES court will provide a framework to achieve those goals of providing the care they need and the support they need in the process with this. It's similar in some ways, maybe to the efforts of Redondo Beach Court and others. There have been other plans like the AOT, assisted outpatient treatment. And of course, there's conservatorship. This is sort of maybe before that and process with that. AOT has to go through the county. We work with the county Department of Health, but it's a process to go through. AOT, you could go straight to the court and process with this. A lot of the details need to be worked out. And when at the hearing, it was mentioned that Dr. Ghali, the Director of the Department of Health and Human Services, was willing to work with the organizations who had opposition to it. So it's an ongoing process to try to address some of the concerns about the civil rights, to make sure there's protection for the individual, but also that they get the care they need in the process with that. So we are proposing to support it and want to just give you information about it. There is actually tomorrow, the Deputy Director of Health and Human Services, Stephanie Welch, is having a town hall with NAMI chapters from across the state, which will be discussing with her some of the concerns, some of the issues. There are on the governor's website an FAQ about how it's going to be implemented, the various concerns and how they're going to be addressed with this, so that all the elements are being addressed. We are very concerned, of course, about the infrastructure to support it. You heard a discussion earlier about the workforce. There's a serious concern to make sure there's workforce in place and also supportive housing in place to deal with this. So there's a lot of issues that have to be addressed to make sure that there is the infrastructure in place to make sure it happens and implemented well. And we know that with the 988 number coming online, there's going to be maybe even more demand for this type of issue to come up in the process. So we're just want to let you know about our support for it, and hope that others are supporting the bill and working with the office to try and make sure all the key issues are being addressed in terms of infrastructure, in terms of how it's going to be implemented, and of course the court itself process with that. So I think that's, just trying to lay that out. There's a lot of funding issues to be addressed also. They are trying to use the housing funds to help support it. And that's also part of the issue with that. So just want to share those thoughts with you and see if there's any questions or how we can help address any issues with you.
Thanks, Mr. Stansbury. Ronson, anybody questions?
Yeah, well,
Go ahead.
I think Garrett has a question. I just want to say really quickly before we take questions, one of the reasons why I brought Paul on is that this will be a very big issue. LA Times has already done 2 articles on it with the position of talking about how ACLU and the Western Poverty Law Center are against the care courts. And so it is a very polarizing issue and something that we're following very closely. And so I wanted to bring Paul on. He's been a great advocate on the South Bay Coalition and Homelessness. He hosts a meeting once a month on issues regarding mental health. And so he's a great resource. And we'll be leaning on him as a task force on these very complicated mental health issues. And then, as we monitor the care court legislation through the state, we'll definitely want to maybe consider taking a stance on it. Garrett, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you for providing this information about the care courts. It is definitely a necessary addition to our infrastructure. There are so many people that are just cycling between incarceration and hospitalization. So we need some type of intervention. We've seen the success of the Redondo court system, and so how we can really provide these services. I just kind of have the same concern that you do about the infrastructure. We've talked about there being insufficient housing, insufficient workforce. And so I'm just sort of worried about what exactly is this program going to look like, and how are we going to get more service providers out there that are able to provide really the complex needs. We're talking about mental illnesses, schizophrenia and psychotic disorders, as well as criminal justice involvement, potentially physical health and issues. And so it's an integration of all these different things. And we need an integrated service provider. And I'm just, do we have that? Do we have the capacity to do that? And then the other thing is, oh, sorry, I know you're going to go ahead.
No, I did want to mention there, State Senator Weiner does have a bill, SB 964, which is trying to address some of the workforce issues with that. So there are some other legislation which is sort of connected to help deal with the workforce issue. So, and we do have under the Mental Health Services Act some WET funds. So there is some effort we can have to bring to bear so that they can use the funds from the Mental Health Services Act from the county funds to go ahead and try to get more people scholarships or trained or whatever in the process with that.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah. So we need to be able to access more funding. Yeah. And then the other concern that I had was that you said that there's a 12-month time limit. And then from my reading of it, that the care court can extend that 12-month time limit to a maximum of 24 months. For this high need population, I just like to give a little bit of background of myself. I'm an attorney and about to graduate with my master's in social work. I've been working in homeless services for about 7 years now and specializing in people with serious mental illness and street-based care. And so I've seen people that have been able to recover and people that have been able to, become productive members of society again and really reclaim their life. But it doesn't always take 12 months and it doesn't always take 24 months because we're talking about people who have had a lifetime of issues and really an insufficient system that's able to meet their needs for all of this time. And so it's really difficult for people to then reclaim their life within this short amount of time. So I'm just concerned about time limited services when we're talking about giving people the most amount of choice and really honoring self-determination and the right to choose their care. So different people choose their care at different rates, obviously. So just
thanks for the question. Yeah, I think right. It's the at least it gives us a chance to get some people stable and have a chance to get help. But I think also the plan is after they leave CARES, if it's a year or 2 years or even the 3 years, that there would still be referred to programs that could be of help. And that's one reason why we're not concerned about the licensed boarding CARES, so that they become better able to provide services as well as the housing and food and so forth, and they don't close, because we're just seeing it's almost like it needs to be a continuum of different types of alternative processes. And if it's not the CARES court is not a lot the situation, but then to have some lower level of care after they leave so they can still maintain stability. I get calls all the time from families, and sometimes they still live at home and should not be at home anymore, or they're homeless, or they're near homeless, or so forth. So there just needs to be a certain level, a continuity of different options to deal with the supportive housing and the treatment issues that deal with. So my understanding is, and this is where we would want to confirm that, is that, and when they leave, they would still be referred to services, appropriate services that they can still get support, but not necessarily at the same level as before.
Hopefully that answered all your questions there, Garrett. Thanks. Go ahead, Paul. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say also, like Laura and I at the task force, we actually visited the Department of Mental Health home team last week or 2 weeks ago. And it was very eye-opening. I posed to them like a very simple question. We've seen this, everyone on this call, that person on the street corner in front of a business that day after day, they're just standing there muttering to themselves. They're obviously going through some sort of mental health distress. And we always wonder, like, why isn't anyone helping that person? Why do we as a society let that person out on the street day after day? And it doesn't seem like anyone's helping that person. And DMH said, we are. The reality is we are helping that person. The problem is we're helping him on the street. We don't have any place to take him to. And so it really hit home, what Paul's talking about is having more board and care facilities and more facilities in general. We're basically, it's almost as if like a doctor is telling you, hey, you need surgery, but we don't have any beds, so we're going to do your surgery on the street. Like we're taking care of mental health patients on the street, and that's no place to help with someone's mental health disorder. So that's something that I think as a task force we really got to look into, is how do we build more facilities here? And that's going to be a huge NIMBY challenge, right? Like just let's be honest, if we talk about building any type of mental health facility in any community, there's going to be huge uproar. And so we really need to figure out a way to make this politically feasible, maybe with data, stats, or whatnot. But that's going to be a huge priority for us, especially since we are working on the 988 response with the county, alternative crisis response. We need a place to take people, and we can't just dump them in the hospital. So just want to throw that out there.
And then Ron said, they also mentioned the Senate Bill 1416. That's the one I also mentioned, that's to redefine or help modernize the definition of gravely disabled. That's been, I'm sure, as you all know, an ongoing challenge for law enforcement and for first responders and for providers and so forth, how to define gravely disabled. And that's by State Senator Eggman, who also is part of the CARES Court Senate bill process with that. So there's several pieces of company legislation which help support the CARES Court.
Good. Garrett, you still have your hand up?
Yes, I just have a comment, something that Ronson brought up that I wanted to talk about. So you mentioned there being just like massive opposition to creating a mental health facility and designating that in any one community. And so, and then you also were kind of talking about like street-based care and whether or not that's actually effective. And so I've worked in street-based care teams before, and like you were saying with the home team, what their biggest roadblock, the issue is there's nowhere to put people. I do think though that there is a lot of value in providing street-based services, because right now what we're seeing in Los Angeles is that as many as 4 people per day are dying. It's about an average. And the #1 cause of death right now is from overdose, and that people are 36 times more likely to die from overdose on the streets. The #2 cause of death is heart disease. The #3 cause of death, I'm blanking on it right now.
COVID.
No, sorry. 3 was getting hit by cars, buses, and trains, was transit-related incidents.
4 is traffic-related, and 5 is homicide.
5 was homicide, 6 was suicide. And so like there is a lot of value to providing physical health services and mental health services, substance use care to people that are on the street, because people are dying from it right now while they're out there. So just from like a life-saving perspective, there is value to that. And I think that people would get on board with providing street-based mental health care because it doesn't necessarily make people go to one set location, and it's mobile enough that we could provide it throughout an entire service planning area, and it could potentially provide all of these life-saving supports to people while they're waiting for these more permanent solutions like housing to come online. And when we're looking at people who have a serious mental illness or other type of illness, if we compare that to physical health issues like cancer, your cancer doctor isn't going to treat you for 12 months and then say, okay, going to refer you out to somebody else. Like you have a long time relationship with your oncologist and they're following up with you. And even when your cancer goes into remission, you're still following up. And I think that we should be treating mental health and serious mental illness the same way. And we should be providing long-term care and longevity of support to maintain that stability long-term. Because if you're having to constantly refresh providers every 12 months and you're transferred to a new team every 12 months, you're eventually just going to stop wanting to share your story and share your information if you're having to do it over and over and over again. And you're going to feel like you don't matter and that you don't have this relationship with a provider. Versus someone that has long-term care for cancer treatment or heart disease or any other physical health issue, like we would be really upset if our doctors were constantly leaving us. And so I think that we need to respect the people that are on the streets and experiencing this, our most vulnerable community members. So I just, wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you. And Ronson, just to add on, thank you, Garrett. I'm unfortunately been dealing with this issue with my son for 20 years and worked with NAMI for 20 years. And the calls we get from families, from the beach cities to Carson, from Inglewood to PV, families are just, the system is just, it's hard to find how to navigate the system or how to get the help. And that, unfortunately, oftentimes that leads to people becoming homeless or in a situation with that. So having the system having the services in place is very important. And oftentimes they do want to stay in the South Bay. So it isn't, I know there are homeless people or issues that come from other areas, but also people like my son, they do like to stay in the South Bay and try to provide services and so forth. So it is a South Bay issue too, in terms of citizens and residents and families dealing with their loved ones, trying to deal with mental illness issues with that. So that's one reason why NAMI South Bay is so supportive of the CARES Court, how to get treatment earlier on in the process so they don't become homeless and don't get involved in the process.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Stanbury. We appreciate that. You guys have any other questions for Paul? Once you drop it in the chat, and I'm sure he'll be able to answer that for you. So we're going to move on to the Innovation Fund project updates. Ronson and Lori.
Yeah, thanks, Councilmember Tanaka. Yeah, so I think as we move along through the course of the year, we'll be providing updates on the various Innovation Fund projects that we're working on. Had some great meetings with the beach cities as well as Hawthorne on their projects this past couple of weeks, and looking forward to reaching out with other cities as well. But I wanted to share some exciting news. We have our account. It's, knock on wood, it's going to be open like today or tomorrow. So our client aid account, it's a brand new account. And why that's important is that instead of asking the county for reimbursement of client aid, we'll just be able to send out checks through this account, and we'll have prepaid debit cards from this account. So funding for your needs will be more immediate. And I wanted to share how that program is going to work so that you guys can all access, the outreach workers can all access these funds. The client aid account, we have a bucket of money, and it's kind of like a problem solving thing. If you're not trained in problem solving, you need to do that first. So make sure you're getting trained on problem solving, and you have access to the problem solving funds that LASA administers. Because client aid is the funding of last resort. So if you're out of options and you still need help with certain things, then you can come to us. And what we ask you to do is just first send us, me and Lori, an email about what the problem is. And then we'll make a decision on whether or not that's something we will fund. And we'll either give you that debit card or we can write a check. The debit cards will be limited to about $500. So there's really more for things like an application fee or something like that, DMV fees, transportation like an Uber or something like that. And then we can write checks up to $5,000 if you need security deposit right away, you can't wait for LASA, that type of thing, or you need a motel stay for someone. So those are things that we will be open to fund. And yeah, and so just walking through the process, we have this form, we'll send this out, and what you should do is just bookmark it so that you can just access this form whenever you need to. The participant needs to be in the CES system. That's one of our requirements. We need to work out what we're going to do about the domestic violence victims and things and people that aren't in the CES system. But for now, we're requiring people that are in the homeless management information system. And again, this is the funding of last resort. So make sure you exhaust all other types of avenues to provide the service that you need for that person. And these are the types of things that we would like to support. So, and this isn't everything. There could be, Lori and I are finding that in client aid, like no two cases are the same. And there's a variety of things that people need help with. But we want to, make sure people are refreshed, and, if they have a job interview or a housing appointment or any type of exit event or a court date, we're open to providing like one-night motel stay so that people can get ready and be refreshed for their job interview. So that's something we would support. 1 to 5 day motel stays due to immediate acute health, safety, weather-related problem. This happened to us recently where all the winter shelters were full. It was raining. This was the last week in December. This person, we put them in a motel. He actually had COVID, didn't even know, and then he tested positive. And so it was great that we kind of sheltered him during that rough patch. And then he was able to get housing. Dulce got him housing shortly thereafter. So a great success story. So that's another thing we would help fund. Rent, utility deposits, moving assistance. Oftentimes you get, yay, I got housing, and but you need to move them from someplace to another. Or it's more of like a prevention thing. We often get seniors that need to move, but they're seniors, so they can't lift heavy furniture. So we provide moving assistance like movers and things like that. And again, transportation, appointments, interviews, application fees. These are just some of the things that we would do. And so basically, you would fill out this form, and we would review it, and we would make a determination. So then we would at that point hand you a debit card if it's again under $500, or write you a check to pay for it. And that's basically it. Again, it's open to outreach providers and SPA for your clients. Yeah. Any questions on that? Lori, did I miss anything?
Well, you did a great job as always. Just a couple of things. Okay, nothing hurts me more than having to say no to a client aid request. It just rips my gut out, but I have to follow some protocol. So we're going to push this. Did you exhaust all your efforts for this? But one thing is, we can't really approve open-ended hotel stays. So if you come to us and say, we think they're going to get housed next Thursday, could you put them in the hotel for a week? We've kind of been bit by that, because sometimes it's 2 weeks, it's 3 weeks, it's 4 weeks, and on and on. It has to be something that is makes sense, that they are going to be housed somewhere. So the only best way I can explain it is no open-ended hotel requests, and don't make me say no. It's just so difficult. And when you email Ronson and I, could you put the client's name in the subject line? It really helps kind of organize. I see Carrie L is now here, and Carrie L, I'm not sure at what point you popped in, but Ronson and I are addressing the fact that DV clients are not always in the CES system. They may be, but that you cannot. So we're working on that. So Ronson, that's the only thing I could think to add. You got 3 hands up.
We just need a way to validate that they're homeless, and I think so. We'll work with you, Carrie L, on that aspect of it. But yeah, if you had any other questions, feel free to chime in now.
Okay, so I have Nancy first, though.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. I have Nancy first, and I have Carolee, and then I have Ash. Okay, so let's do that first. Go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you so much, council member. Hey, Ronson and Lori, just a couple of quick questions. First, before I forget, I'm a little uneasy with people putting names on there. If they could either put first name, and I'm just concerned about confidentiality, even if they're not DV survivors. So just something to consider. The other thing was, I'm just trying to understand how this program works. So, and sorry, I couldn't keep up with your form as you were scrolling. It's probably obvious once you send the form out, but I know when the COG had done client aid before, the request had to come, I thought the request had to come through a city person. So is that still required, or could just case managers who may not necessarily be as connected as some of the folks on our line? So if you could just clarify that for me. Thank you.
It's directly, we wanted to have a direct connection with the case managers. The only reason why we brought cities into it was because of the funding piece. The cities had money, and so they could immediately put up the funds. But now that we have our own bank account, we don't need that anymore. And so
okay, great. So I'm assuming that you're also just taking this to case conferencing then, right?
Yeah. Pardon? Wait, say that again.
I'm assuming you're also going to be having an opportunity to go to the case conferencing meeting, just so all the case managers know as well.
So, oh yeah, that's yeah. We'll make sure to do that with partner with Max on that one. Yeah.
And Nancy, we have to have a name. We're this is just, I'm asking for the subject of the email to Ronson and I, and we have to report out. Ronson, we have to have a name. And this is all the same information that we've been asking before. This Google form is just organizing this and downloading it into a spreadsheet. It's nothing different.
It's helpful because we've get instances where go ahead.
I don't want to get in the middle of how you. I'm just lifting up that I personally have concerns about that, but if none of the service providers do, then I guess go for it. I'm just a little uneasy. I know even when we do email, especially if it's not, and if the files aren't, kind of password protected, that we are supposed to use HMIS numbers. So I'm just, again, but I'm not the expert. So whatever the service providers are good with, go for
I'll just
it.
say
just raising a concern. That's all.
Yeah, just say two things. It's helpful for me and Lori because we had instances where like cases sound very similar because this is a very transient population. We had an instance where like PATH approached us and Torrance approached us, and they sounded very similar, but they were two different people, it turned out. So it was good for us to have the names. And then the second thing I'd say is that on the HMIS waiver that clients sign, they are covered by this. So what I'm saying is that they agreed that their information, personal identifying information, can be shared with programs like this to help them. And so we're covered under like a legal situation as well.
I just want to make sure that the service provider, and again, just take it offline and maybe just check with some of the service providers leads that are on this call. And then again, if they're comfortable with it, then obviously I'm fine with it as well. I just know in past that hasn't been the protocol. I just don't want service providers to get their hands slapped anytime in the future from someone like LASA. That's all. But thanks. That's it. Thank you.
Can I weigh in? Because it's on the same topic, and I actually have the same concern. Sorry, I don't mean to take cuts, carry out. It's in regards to actually putting full names in the subject line. I'm not really sure how cities or providers or COG's email system is encrypted. I would strongly discourage that names be included in the subject line. Maybe you guys could go by initials. And then in the text of the email, depending on how the encryption takes place, you guys could probably go into it further, but it would be a concern and it may risk, raise some liability in terms of including the client's names in the subject line. And we had the same situation within the CEO when we're trying to handle client information. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, you guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we can think about. I mean, just maybe Lori, we don't have them be in the subject line, but at least we have some way of knowing who that person is.
Yeah, we'll revisit it. It's just I was getting so many emails, and like Ronson said, the stories were similar, and I'm trying to figure out, did I already answer this one? And have I already approved it? Is it another city? Because sometimes somebody will go to 2 different cities looking for help and you find out it's the same person. But certainly we don't want to break any protocol of confidentiality. So thank you.
But like I
Right.
said, the clients do waive that when they sign up to HMIS. So it's,
Ronson, check with our legal staff at COG and see what they think.
okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it's probably just a quick question and answer.
Bronson, I don't think it's the sharing of information with the partners. I think it might be also the mode of the data transmission.
I see. You're worried about like a breach and that type of information getting out there.
How secure it is.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll look into that, but Carrie on, go ahead.
Apologies, I had to step away, but I guess just to go back to the comment about working with non-CES participants that are experiencing DV. I know, Roger, you mentioned something about verifying the homelessness. So I'm wondering if that can be done through the certification, self-certification, or through the homeless provider to verify that, if that's one of the means that can be used. But yeah, I really like, I know that we, especially when it comes to DD, we have limited resources. So we're trying to work with partners like Harbor Interfaith and whatnot. However, yeah, it's taking an impact on us right now with all the HBs coming through and all the additional things. So we really want to press the urgency for that.
Yeah, I'm totally open to it. It's just like, as a COG, we have like a process in place, and I had to get this approved through the steering committee, and we had to lay out all the different processes. And I didn't think about the domestic violence part of it. And so that's my bad. But yeah, let me just run it through the usual course of business and see if we can get some sort of exception rule allowed for domestic violence survivors. So for sure. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, I don't see any other hands. So if you like, again, if you have questions and stuff for Ronson or Lori, just kind of throw it in the chat and they'll be glad to answer that. So I think Ronson has some really good news about this next topic, the Blue Ribbon Commission final report.
Yeah, let me just combine this with the next one too. Actually, the next three topics. We just have a bunch of updates. And so let me just knock them all out all at once. So the Blue Ribbon, really quick, I already sent a bunch of emails on that, so I don't want to dive too much into it. But yeah, it's very exciting. Our very own Christian Horvath served as co-chair for the Blue Ribbon Commission, and he spent a lot of hard work and time listening to so many people. This wasn't his idea, our idea. I mean, it really is. Like the recommendations were by the people, for the people. And it's a new governance structure that is taking into account all the different feedback that the Blue Ribbon Commission received. And so I think, I kind of agree with Christian, that should pass unanimously yesterday in the Board of Supervisors vote, because if it didn't pass, it would be almost as if we weren't listening to the 150 plus testimonies of subject matter experts, lived experience people, and cities all around the country too, that testified to the Blue Ribbon Commission. So I'm really happy that passed. And I feel like it's a new beginning where we can really have a governance structure that addresses the needs of LA County. LA County's governance structure, the Joint Powers Authority that created LAHSA, was done in 1993 when homelessness was not the #1 issue in 1993. I think we're all listening to In Sync back then. So it was just a much different time. And so now it's 30 years later, and we finally have a homeless governance structure that will address the crisis that it is. And so I'm very happy about that. We're going to work really hard with the county to make sure that this is done right, and we're just not adding like another bureaucracy to it. So that's the Blue Ribbon Commission. Any questions on that? Okay.
No, you guys did a great job, though. That was a lot of work.
Yeah, and again, kudos to also thank you, Councilmember Tanaka, all the cities, Torrance, Manhattan Beach, Hawthorne. I put it on the list yesterday. You guys all wrote letters or actually attended the Birch meetings, and so thank you for your hard work. And some of those meetings were like after hours, early mornings, so it was definitely a big thank you. It was a team effort. So thanks everyone. Let's see. So Lori, you want to talk about SB 914?
Well, sure. And I'll let Carrie L jump in if she wants to. So SB 914 Basically, in a summary, is reducing gender bias and disparities in outcomes in California's response to homelessness by embedding a focus on domestic violence survivors and other vulnerable populations into local homelessness plans. It'll improve California's response to homelessness by requiring cities, counties, and continuums of care that receive state funding to address homelessness to include domestic violence survivors and unaccompanied women within the vulnerable population for whom specific system supports are developed. And I did get an update from Carrie L that we made it out of the Senate Housing Committee last week with no opposition, yay. And the next steps is it goes to the Senate Appropriations Committee for a bill hearing. And Carrie L, do you have anything to add to that?
Just wanted to share that I will, Rainbow Services is a co-sponsor along with Downtown's Women's Center and the California Partnership on Domestic Violence. So we had the partnership had their policy advocacy day yesterday. So we spoke to a lot of legislators and it seems to be well received. So we're hopeful that this will make it through. Yeah, and if there might be an ask coming around for any support, and so keep an eye out for that. Please.
And Ronson drafted a letter of support that he's sending to the COG board. So we'll keep you posted on that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, great. I want to talk about really quickly evictions. Max shared this. Thank you, Matt. This was really awesome that you shared it. It gives like a timeline on the eviction moratorium. You guys can see that. So this is really important because like I've said before, UCLA is projecting that the expiration of eviction moratorium is going to cause 100,000 plus people to become homeless. 69% of all homelessness starts with an eviction. So either you're evicted from your landlord or your family kicks you out, but that's how homelessness starts. So evictions are a big deal. And so I just wanted to let you all know that if you can't pay your rent from April 1st to June 30th, tenants in most of LA County will be evicted if the landlords pursue that. There are certain cities that have, I guess, their own protections on folks. And these are those cities. There is so that's a weird hole. But July 1st through December 31st, tenants in all of LA County can defer their rental payments if they meet certain criteria. So there is some more relief through to the end of the year, except if you can't pay your rent between April 1st and June 30th. And then what about if you didn't pay your rent from October 1st to March 31st? So then, and if you haven't submitted the Housing is Key rent relief form, then you haven't done these declarations or haven't paid 24% of it, you are not protected from evictions. So this could be a big problem. The reason I want to share this is that this was put out by the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. And so I just want cities and all of you to know, if you are encountering people that are having eviction issues, that the best thing to do is to contact your pro bono legal services. And then we can maybe send out like the list, but you have folks like Inner City Law Center, Legal Aid, Neighborhood Legal Services. There are a lot of groups that do provide pro bono services. If you're a tenant and you are served an eviction notice, if you don't respond to that notice within 3 days or 5 days, you will get evicted. So it's very important that if someone gets an eviction notice, that they right away contact a lawyer. If they don't ever contact a lawyer, the percentage chance that they get evicted is 99%. So almost 100%. So get a lawyer. If you're going through an eviction, we want to get a lawyer right away.
Ronson, how can our cities get that information to tenants? Because a lot of them are not necessarily online. So what can our cities do to partner and get the word out? That's
a good question. I don't know. We need to work on that, Lori. you know, I wanted to do this in the board meeting that we had, but we were just so short on time. But yeah, we definitely need to present this to our steering committee and our board, and to see if we can disseminate this information to our cities as well, for sure.
And Courtney just put a note in there that they might be a resource for us.
Yes,
Okay.
we have prevention services available.
Oh,
So you
awesome.
just reach out to me and we'll do the process. And if they qualify, we'll enroll them and hopefully get their arrears paid.
Yeah. So Gary had a good point. Gary, you're actually speaking to a movement that Intercity is trying to do, is do a right to counsel movement. Whereas like anyone is subject to eviction, it's kind of like a legal defense, but for evictions, it's like, you know, you have a right to have a lawyer. And so that's something that, that people are lobbying for. The other thing I wanted to share is we're still monitoring. There's a motion in LA City that would prevent background checks and credit checks. As I mentioned before, credit checks is actually a racial equity issue. Black people are predominantly burdened by credit checks because of redlining in the past, and they're not, as a population, Black families have not been traditionally homeowners, and so they've been traditionally renters. So when's the last time your landlord reported your timely rent payment to a credit agency? That never happens, right? So renters do not get that benefit. You pay your mortgage, that gets reported to a credit agency. You pay your rent, that does not get reported to a credit agency. So this is a racial equity issue. And so the city of LA has a motion now, and the Secretary of HUD is also looking into this. And so we want to advocate for at least just on the voucher side, people with vouchers don't run their credit checks. There's no point, you know, don't do it. And then on criminal backgrounds, actually I learned this. It's actually unlawful for a landlord or a housing provider to have a policy that prohibits persons with a criminal record from renting it or living in a housing unit, no matter the circumstances. And this is from the Federal Fair Employment and Housing. So that kind of just blew my mind. I didn't know that. So you actually, I guess it's illegal to run a background check and prevent someone from renting your unit with a criminal background. There are only like some mitigating circumstances, but that was very interesting to find that as we're doing our research on this issue. So I just wanted to update that. And I think lastly on the related topic, any questions on that from anyone? Okay, and then on the related topic, EHVs, we're still seeing slow uptake. This is part of our conversation we had earlier about EHV vouchers, the housing availabilities. But as you can see, like in LA County, there are 3,300 awards, only 2,000 have been issued. Of those issued, only 102 have been leased up, so a 3% rate. So that's not very good. I think they all have to be leased up by, was it September of next year? I don't know, Courtney, if you know, or anyone. But there's a clock ticking, and so it's not like we have these vouchers forever. So this is a very important issue. We want to get all our emergency housing vouchers leased up in our area. We're doing a little bit better in some of our cities, but yeah, this is just something we're going to be monitoring as well. So I think that's that. I think Councilmember Tanaka, we can maybe do like any other legislative updates if anyone else had updates on legislation. Sure.
Did you have anything on home share though?
We can do that after. I don't want to. I just want to make see if any of our electeds have any updates.
Okay, because we're a little ahead of time, so that's fine. So like Ronson said, does any elected or anybody have any updates on any legislative issues or things that you want to talk about? Just go ahead and raise your hand. I'm not seeing it. Oh, there you go, Eric.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric. I'm with the Office of Assemblymember Maritsuchi. I just wanted to provide a quick update on AB 2220, which is Assemblymember Maritsuchi's Homeless Court grant bill. As you all know, AB 2220 establishes state funding for local homeless court programs across the state. The bill currently passed the Assembly Judiciary Committee and the Committee on Health, and it is currently pending a hearing on the Appropriations Committee. Yeah, that is the only update I have today.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Janet?
Sorry, had to unmute. So nothing specifically legislative wise, but for any of you who are not in Torrance, the congressman came to Torrance City Hall last week and presented the city with a gigantic $1 million check, which will go towards supporting their tiny village. It's not building it, but supporting its staffing and other needs to make it happen. So we were really happy to be able to meet all the staff in Torrance, and we'll see what happens this year. I know many people have put in community project funding requests for 2022. So fingers crossed. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Anybody else? I'm looking for hands. Okay, I don't see any other hands. Okay, Ronson, I have no other volunteers for updates.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we still have a couple more updates. At the COG, this is where Jackie would normally say some updates from the COG, but she's out of town. So some good news. It looks like we are moving forward with a housing trust fund. Yay! I'm very hopeful that we can put that together. It sounds like we're still working out the details, but that is still something we're working on. Lori, do you have any updates on any of our other programs that we're working on at the COG, like even outside homeless services?
Oh, well, you mean on energy efficiency?
Yeah, or anything like, I guess, outreach events and things like that.
Yeah, actually, Carson, on May 7th, they're going to have a virtual mental health resource forum.
Let me share that. I have that. It's right here.
Okay. I was going to say maybe Keith has information. That's from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. So for anybody that's interested in that. And then Ronson, I think you were going to mention the May tour of the Back Home Initiative in Downey.
Yeah, let me share that too. So this is really interesting. So Back Home Initiative, they actually provide so the Back Home Initiative, they actually provide free of charge to homeowners, ADU construction and maintenance, support service for tenants and homeowners, and $1,000 stipend. So this is like awesome program. I mean, and it's for homeowners to build an ADU in their backyard. They're having a tour on May 17th at noon. And so if you're interested, just email the COG. It's a tour of their ADU units at their facility in Downey. And so I'll be going to that. I think, I don't know if you are, Lori, but yeah, so a few of us from the COG are going to go and check that out. So
if I could add, so I actually did the tour, and Richard Corral actually did a presentation, I want to say like a year and a half ago to this group, but we have a lot of new people on the task force. It actually was really fascinating, but I believe right now it's just the city of LA, but that's why I'd like to see some people in the South Bay get familiar with this, and maybe we can get this program added to some of the South Bay cities.
Got it. Yeah, you're right. It is just for the city of LA. Forgot to mention that. But yeah, I mean, it's a great program. So I'd love to learn more about it and see how successful it is.
Okay. Any other announcements?
I just want to, again, every couple of months, home sharing, I'm looking for the cities to continue and partner with us. We're getting people signing up to be housemates, still a little struggling, just like we can't find landlords to take housing ventures. We can't find property owners who want to open up their home. I'll report back in a couple of months. I will be using the program. I will be home sharing. I'm just moving in right now. And so I will be able to give you firsthand information on how successful this is. It's really a prevention program. And I know that there are people that are in a situation where they're empty nesters, or they're in a little bit of a financial bind, or they just want to help some people and they have room to rent out in their homes. And we just need the cities to help us find those people. Now that we're opening up, I can do in-person presentations.
Good.
I just want to announce, thank you, Lori, for sharing the home share thing. Continue to push that. We're going to have more advertising on that, but I want to announce like a special meeting of the task force, actually. We're going to have it on May 25th. And this was a request from the county because, there's a lot of movement going on in terms of working more closely with cities and COGs for homelessness response. And we're working really closely with Ashley on this, but we want to have a special task force meeting on May 25th. I'll send out an invite, but I want to give you guys a heads up. It's very important if you're a city official or a city manager and staff, if you guys can attend, that'd be great. But it's going to be about how funding is going to be, going forward for cities and COGs, and they're going to talk about like not how we can maybe avoid silos and how we can use our regional infrastructure that we have, our regional coordination infrastructure that we have to facilitate this funding to cities and COGs. And so, so that's going to be on May 25th and now at 2 p.m. And so I'll send out an invite. It'll be on Wednesday.
Okay.
Ronson, Bill Uphoff, council member, is asking when the new 911, but I think he means the 988 number, is actually going to be implemented. I know they've started it in a couple of test cities, but I don't know when it's rolling out to all of LA County. Do you?
I don't know if it's going to be anytime soon. They were supposed to do it summer. If you call 988, you can call 988 right now. I actually called them on Monday when I met with chief of police at Hawthorne. He was very skeptical about it because it's just there's just a lot of work that needs to be done and to get that thing up and running. But if you call 988 right now, it just takes you to the suicide hotline. So you don't even get a warm voice. It's just the hotline. And so it's going to be, my guess is it's not going to happen. I mean, the soonest would be maybe fall, but we'll see. I mean, we're working on it and I'm working with the county on it. And so we'll see how we can get this thing up and running, but there's going to be a lot of coordination needed with the police departments on this because the idea is to divert non-law enforcement type calls to this. So like maybe even welfare checks, domestic disputes, things like that, in addition to homelessness response and mental health response. But the question is still going to be like, so how do we know if the situation that the teams will be called into is not going to turn into a violent situation? We still may need to have a police dispatch out to assess the situation before we allow like a mental health team to go in there who are not necessarily trained to de-escalate potentially violent situations. And even if we do have a welfare check, if a mental health team goes and knocks on the door, no one answers, then what do you do? Those teams won't necessarily be trained to do things that our law enforcement officials currently are being trained. So there's just a lot of details that need to be worked out, and it's going to take some time.
Do you have any update on the Project Home Key sites?
No, I don't have any new updates. Last I heard, they're still being moved forward, and we talked to Redondo Beach last week, and they, all indications are that it's moving forward.
Okay, that's a lot of information we just passed through. Anybody have anything else that they just have a burning desire to bring up? Okay, so with having nothing, we appreciate y'all being here today and marking your calendars. 6th of July will be our next task force meeting, except for the special one that Ronson just mentioned on the 25th. So we hope to see y'all there. And with that, we stand adjourned.
Thank you. Take care,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye, everybody. Happy Mother's Day.